Hello, and welcome to The Mind of a Therapist, a podcast where we interview psychotherapists and helping professionals what they are passionate about in order to provide you with messages of encouragement and hope. The Mind of a Therapist is sponsored by Psychological Counseling Services, PCS, Healing Hearts and Transforming Lives. Please look into our intensive program at pcsintensive.com. I am Dr. Marcus Earle, the Clinical Director of PCS. Each episode will be hosted by me or another PCS therapist. Please enjoy the following discussion. Hello, I'm your host, Dr. Marcus Earle, and I'm here with Dr. Brian Case, a longtime colleague and friend. And so, Brian, how about if you introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm a long-term colleague and friend of Marcus Earle, and I've been here for 28 years.
Yeah.
I'm a 58-year-old dude with a great beard and a big family. Got 8 kids, 3 bio kids, 5 step kids, and been living here in Arizona. I grew up actually 7 miles south of PCS, so this is my home turf, more or less. I don't know what else is, as far as introduce yourself, I don't know what all people have typically been
That's pretty
sharing with
good.
us,
I mean, what I've always found really fun is that we grew up probably within 3 blocks of one another.
Yeah. I remember when I first called to when my other internship fell through, and my professor, Dr. Sprinkle, said, "Yeah, I think Ralph Earle has a place there in Scottsdale." And I called and I talked to you, and I was like, "Wait, your last name is Earle? Do you have a sister, Michelle?" "Yeah, she lived right across from Stacy Sears."
Yep.
Fact that we were literally same street, because you were La Jolla or Manhattan, right?
La Jolla.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we were literally one block over. So
it's life is interesting that way. And
small world.
and so
Yeah. Anytime you can say we had the same football coach, there's a lot to have in common just with that.
The trauma bonding that went around on.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, it's a lot of fun. So, how would you describe what drew you into the field?
It's kind of a funny story. I'll try to keep it relatively brief. So when I got back from my mission down in Peru, obviously I had learned Spanish. So my goal was I was going to learn 3 more languages. I wanted to be fluent in 5 languages and go into international marketing. And so I came back, and my very first semester signed up for Chinese because I figured, hey, that's a good language to learn. And about 2 or 3 weeks into it, I realized this is nothing like learning Spanish. Like Spanish, radio is spelled the same way, you just pronounce it differently. There was nothing in common with Chinese. And I got about 3 or 4 phrases down. I said, I don't think I can do this. So I dropped the Chinese class, and the only classes that were available during that same slot that late into the semester, one of them was communications. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. And as I was learning things, I was like, wow, I don't communicate this way, or I've never heard about nonverbal communication. And I certainly was aware we don't communicate like this in my family. And so we were just sitting down at dinner, and I was talking about some of these things, and my mom said, I think you'd be a really good family therapist. Excuse me. And I was like, yeah, I came from the perfect family, so I think that would be good.
There we go.
I'd be a good therapist. Yeah. And my family was great, and still is, but it wasn't perfect. But ironically, the thing that motivated me to get into this field is I thought I came from the perfect family, and I had a lot to give, so why not do that? And then I made the mistake of going to graduate school and learning about family dynamics and some of the subtleties of families that have jacked up parts of them, but that aren't blatantly, problematic. So there's no blatant abuse or neglect or blatant addictions, things like that. But we didn't know how to deal with conflict. We didn't know how to, really connect on a deeper level. So the good stuff, the nice stuff, it was awesome. Our house was the fun place to be. All my friends were welcome. Everybody loved my mom and dad. I loved and do love my mom and dad, but we just didn't deal with certain things. So what brought me into the field was not what's kept me in the field. What I love is seeing people come with pain, hurt, problems, challenges, fears, insecurities, and helping them to realize their awesomeness and to realize that getting real, being more honest with even the tough stuff, the frustration, the anger, etc. Getting to real forgiveness. Like I grew up with forgiveness being an important part of my family and religious life, but I didn't know what it was. It meant don't stay angry.
Give. It's a punctuation.
Just forgive, move on, don't hold grudges, which is great, but not really, because if you just jump over the problems, you jump around, you put a nice smile on top of an issue, and it doesn't work. It doesn't go away. And, here I was, a married guy with no ability to really deal with conflict. And as I learned new things, I was like, wow, this is hard, but it's so much better. And that's part of what I love about what we do, about my job. Like, yeah, it's hard to do it real,
right?
But it's so much better, so much more fulfilling. And that's a lot of what I do. I tell people that, they ask, what do you do? I said, I'm a therapist. And, well, gosh, what is that like? It must be hard listening to people's problems all day. I'm like, not really, because I don't just listen to people's problems all day. I help people help themselves. I help people to recognize they're not alone. And at the end of the day, I'm in the business of hope. And if I can interact with somebody where they leave with a little bit more hope for healing, for change, for growth, for being able to get out of pain or loneliness, a little bit more hope in their own abilities, that's pretty freaking awesome. And to be a small part of that, is really fulfilling.
Nice. That was a lot more than I asked. That was brilliantly done, as usual with you. So, I think that's the really great thing about our work, because, so many people view as you just listening to problems day after day after day, which is true. And if that's the mindset, then that's going to pull you down.
Right.
And I love what you said. I'm in the business of hope. And I think that maintaining that mindset, that attitude, that there's always a path through. There's always a way through this. And what is so hopeful is all that you're going to learn and grow and learn to embrace about yourself in ways you hadn't before. So it's really cool.
I would have never foreseen having a career that essentially, to do it well, I believe, you have to look at yourself. You have to work on yourself. And there are a lot of times where I'll tell my wife or friends, I'm like, I don't want to be so aware.
Right.
I don't want to have a job where every day I'm hearing things like, oh, snap, yep, I've done that, I've said that, oh, crap, I put another $100 in the therapy fund. I'm sure my kids are going to have to deal with that. And yet at the same time, it's really nice to have those frequent reminders of, oh yeah, you got to deal with that. You got to look at that. You got to focus on that. You need to go and lean into what that would have been like for your kid that you said that or didn't do that. So it's got its challenges, and it's definitely has its payoffs.
Yeah, I wish it all happened through osmosis.
That would be
what I was helping people
nice.
with, and what I realized about myself in the moment would just shift me.
Yeah.
And then we have to work at it.
Well, eventually, I'm sure that with technology, there will be something
Right.
osmosis-ish about personal growth and healing. But I don't think in our lifetime.
I don't think so. That'd be interesting, though. So when you think about, all the aspects of the work that you do, I'm curious, how did you land on anger and forgiveness? I mean, you mentioned the forgiveness a moment ago, but there's that anger piece. So how did that become a specialty for you?
Well, ironically, it's connected in part to the groups that we have here at PCS. So I don't know if you remember this. So because I did my forgiveness or my dissertation on forgiveness, so I came in with that passion.
Yeah.
And I knew that, that was certainly connected to anger because, what do? You have hurt, anger, resentment, you try to move to forgiveness. And I had learned so many things about the complexities of forgiveness. And as I mentioned earlier, I had learned about the importance of dealing with conflict and not just dancing around it. So I had asked you, I'd like to do a forgiveness group. And you said, okay, cool. Can you integrate some anger stuff into it? I was like, sure, they're definitely related. So that's how we came up with the anger and forgiveness group. It wasn't that I wanted to specialize in anger management, that I wanted to do an anger group. It was all about forgiveness. So it was in the context of that I started to learn even more about the importance of dealing with anger on a more specific level. It was, what I learned about forgiveness in those 4 years of reading and studying and doing my master's and dissertation on forgiveness is that anger's not bad. It's necessary. It's important. It does its job of protection if we allow it to. But that's about as far as I got. It's been over the course of, these 28 years of working here that I've become progressively more aware of both the importance of anger, but also the importance of recognizing when anger is it's a false alarm, or it's just connected to things that, beliefs that we attach to things. And so I have shifted some, and we don't need to get into the details, but I've shifted some around that in the sense of, yes, it's important to get in touch with anger. A lot of people have a real low tolerance for the experience of anger. In fact, passivity is the most common anger management problem. It's not aggression or reactivity. So it's been over the course of time when I've seen people who are disconnected and afraid of their anger, when they get in touch with that and they can use that to heal or to peel off shame and give it back to the person who abused or neglected them. That's been really exciting to see that. It's also, though, been real exciting in the last few years to help people recognize, and myself specifically recognize, there are a lot of times where we don't need our anger. And it's we're giving energy to something. We're giving energy to certain beliefs, like taking things personal in ways that we don't need to. And that's been pretty powerful and freeing as well.
Yeah, in a sense, kind of that wasted energy defending that which we don't need to defend.
Right. Yeah.
That's good. Well, what I'm hoping is that this becomes a teaser for conversations that we have on this podcast about anger and forgiveness with you. I think it'd be wonderful to just dig into it more. It'd be fun to do. How would you describe, it's 28 years and you've stayed, how would you describe your being here at PCS? What's that like for your experience?
Yeah. Well, it's what you just pointed out, 28 years and I've stayed. Right. What's other people may or may not know in that is that the reason you say and you've stayed is because you and I have seen so many awesome people come and go. Yeah. We've had so many colleagues and friends that have been here for a while and then have gone on sometimes to other careers, but most of the time to just a private practice out here in the Valley, maybe moving away. So for me personally, I've contemplated off and on pretty much for the last 20 years. Wow, am I going to go out and have my own thing? Am I going to do my own private practice, or am I going to stay? And as I would see people leave and talk to them, like, yeah, I'm loving it. It's great. I like the flexibility or whatever. Has always appealed to me. But there's a few things that have kept me here, basically. One, I love the combination of having my own clients that I see, my local clients that I see every week or two or three, and little by little see their growth, and there's an ongoing relationship. That's really valuable to me. But I also love seeing these intensive clients that we have that come from all over the country for 8 days, and I get to work with, some of them, 3 or 4 times a week, and then a couple times at group. And in the course of a week, to see so much change, so much growth, it's intoxicating. It's so cool. I just had a session with a guy who said, I've been in all kinds of treatment programs. This is over 20 years he's been doing things. He says, I've gotten more out of this program than I have in any of those other programs. And it's a really great programs. He said, I feel like I got my money's worth times 10. And so hearing things like that and being a small part of that is just, it's awesome. It's really powerful. And so for me to go off and have my own practice, even if it was, really super fulfilling in certain ways, I could never recreate that experience of spending, 4 or 5 days with somebody and seeing tremendous growth. So I wouldn't want to do just that. I wouldn't want to go work at a treatment center. Right. I wouldn't want to only have my private practice clients. So for me, it's a perfect balance.
Well, it certainly has been a wonderful experience having you, and continues to be. The influence you've had, as I've shared with you previously, on our system is profound. You're a deep thinker. You love to just sit back and process. Well, I don't know if you love it. You do it.
I mostly love it. Sometimes I wish I didn't think so much and process so much. I would like to.
Right.
Yeah.
And that combined with your creative soul has been been a wonderful combination. And so I
Thank
hope everybody's heard how big a heart you have and what a deep process you are and just how you pull things together. So thanks for hanging out and spending a little bit of time.
No, it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
All right.
Please press the subscribe button, as well as rating and providing a review of our podcast. This helps others to connect with what you have been hearing. If you have any questions, please contact us at themindofatherapist@gmail.com. These questions will be kept anonymous. I want to thank Eric Price for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. Additionally, this podcast was created to provide accurate and authoritative information on the subject matter. Although we are interviewing licensed therapists, they are not your therapist. This podcast is not intended to serve as direct medical advice and should not be used as a substitute for direct professional help. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, guest, or PCS are rendering legal, medical, or clinical professional information. If you need a professional, we encourage you to find one. Visit Psychology Today to find a licensed clinician near you.